All right. So, Joe, first and foremost, you're a husband and a father of how many?
So, husband of one wife. That's key. Only one. 10 kids, though. I've got six girls and 4 boys.
Awesome. And what are the age ranges?
So my oldest girl is going to be 17 at the end of this month. And my youngest son, who shares a birthday with C.S. Lewis, is going to be 2
Cool.
at the end of this month.
Wow. Awesome.
So 2 to, right now it's like 1 to 16, soon to be 2 to 17.
Okay. And what advice would you have for young fathers?
So first of all, it's like one of the things our culture desperately wants young fathers to be is impotent. They want them to be super into hobbies or fantasy football or into their own like individual, like self-centered passions. And one of the things I would want anybody who's on the fence about having kids or maybe is about to have a kid or maybe just has had a kid is like you find who you are as a man when you are giving yourself away to other people. That's one of the primary ways that biblical masculinity can be displayed is through the service of leadership. So a lot of people think, we need to have servant leaders, and the way you lead is by serving others, which is true. You do want to lead others by showing them, like, this is how we do things. But there's also a service that comes through just being the guy in charge, being the head of the family, being the one that is the hero in the eyes of your children. So I don't know a lot of people. I'm not. I'm just a nobody who lives on a goat farm. But I'm very famous when it comes to my own house. So I get home and there's a lot of people that are excited to see me because that is my domicile. That is my sphere, and that's available to any man who has a godly wife and who wants to pursue that. So I would say go for it with everything you got.
Yeah. And to someone who would say they're concerned about having kids in this day and age, that kids are expensive, all the propaganda that's out there that wants to make us feel like that is restrictive.
Yeah.
What would you say?
I would say it's absolutely propaganda. Kids, they are expensive, just like having a wife is expensive. But the part of the expense is like why we make money in the first place. So it's like we have wives and children, and that's what really drives us towards wealth building. It's like if we look at like Solomon in the book of Ecclesiastes, he bemoans the fact that all of the wealth that he goes to build is going to go to somebody else. But if you're a husband and you're a father, that's like a glorious thing. Like the hard work that you're doing is going to go to your children. And if you teach them how to do the same thing that you're doing, then it'll go to their children. So you're building this name, not so much for yourself, but for the glory of Christ and for his kingdom. And so, yes, they are expensive, but if you have children and if you get married and you have children, you will likely make a whole lot more money than if you stay single and you stay passionless, or if your only passion is
so true.
Whatever your thing is, like hiking or whatever your hobby is, like that is just can only take you so far unless you just are, you're like Michael Jordan, you just invent grudges against people so that drives you or something. Most people aren't like that though. But if you have a wife who's expecting you to provide for her, and you've got all these kids who are looking up to you, that will cause you to earn far more than you otherwise would have.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up because you find that guys who are heavily focused on hobbies and ideals, and particularly single men, that they more easily encourage and bear grudges because they have time to focus that energy there.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
And when you're living in a household where forgiveness and reconciliation are constant actions and building stronger bonds, then you are naturally going the opposite direction of that.
Yep, absolutely. Especially if you are, as the leader of the home, if you are setting the example for what it looks like to keep short accounts. Like keeping short accounts means that when you mess up as the dad, you show your kids how it is to say, "Hey, I was wrong there. I'm sorry about that. Will you guys forgive me for this?" Because what I found is that the state of my family is generally directly connected with the state of my own spiritual soul. So if I'm if I'm being spiritually lazy, if I'm not crushing vices and developing virtues, if I'm not doing that, my family's not doing that either. And so that is like, it's not only is having kids good for your bank account, but far more than that, it's so good for your soul. Like there's nothing like having a wife and children to show you what it means to be more Christ-like.
Yeah. Yeah. You just multiplied multiple souls.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
have come from your soul. It's a wild, wild
who
thing.
you are responsible for.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That God has given you to bring into adulthood.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something that I was just thinking of when you're talking about that, you and I have both in the past been part of the same church before. We're at the church plants that we're at now.
So wild.
And one of the pastors there, he said something in a parish group one time, which was that asking for forgiveness or repenting of sin yourself as the husband, as the father, that doesn't ruin your authority. Sinning ruins your authority.
Yes.
And so we're not these sinless guys who just have to act like we've got it all together and demand that from everybody else, but we need to lead through that example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally true. And I think if you are practicing forgiveness yourself, you'll find that your children will forgive you almost instantaneously. Sometimes a little harder in the marriage relationship because it's just a different dynamic. Both husbands and wives should always be practicing forgiveness just like God has forgiven them. But like when I confess to my kids, I almost don't have the words out of my mouth and they've already forgiven me.
Yeah.
So when you humble yourself for your children and ask for forgiveness and you seek, you confess your sin, they recognize, they want that fellowship. And if you ignore it and sweep it under the rug, then not only do they see that you're out of fellowship with them, but they also recognize like this is what Dad values. Dad values appearances more than short accounts.
That sounds like the root of exasperating your children.
Yeah.
Or maybe even embittering your wife.
Yep.
Yeah. Two things
absolutely. Because everybody knows you're not perfect. And so to just act like you are, or to refuse to accept the responsibility of whatever sin or in whatever way you've maybe screwed things up, or sometimes they're just sins of omission. Like you just forgot to do something, or you should have acted in a way, but you didn't. You didn't necessarily fly off the handle, but like just neglect. Neglect is a sin too. And we're busy guys. We've got lots to do. We've got lots of things we care about and are passionate about. And sometimes we just neglect some of those more important things. And when we do, we just need to recognize it and own it and then turn away from it because you're going down the wrong path. So faster you turn around, the faster you get back to the right path.
Well, that's already convicting me. My son's last night I got home and I was putting him to bed. I ended up having to work late. And not only did I miss our parish group, which I almost never do, but then they reminded me that I told them I was going to wrestle with them because they knew Dad was leaving. And it was time for them to go to bed and they had to get up for school today. So I need to ask my kids today to forgive me for not doing that. And they were already super forgiving of me and they can't wait to do that. But very encouraging. Yeah. So speaking of kids,
yes,
you run a goat farm.
Yes.
And a goat milk operation all the way to the end product being high quality supplements.
Yeah.
So tell me about your journey coming into that and why you're passionate about it.
Yeah. One of the things I'm passionate about with this particular business is one of the things I'm passionate about in general, which is family businesses and multi-generational thinking. So I love it when any family thinks beyond just like the here and now. Like here and now is important. Jesus tells us, don't worry about tomorrow. Today's got enough trouble of its own. And so we don't want to worry about tomorrow. But thinking beyond just like survival means that you're thinking like, okay, who are my grandkids going to marry? Like, well, I don't have any grandkids. Maybe you don't even have any kids, but you're thinking like, who are my grandkids going to marry? Well, in order to think through that, you need to think about culture building, and you need to think about like, how do you build a culture where Christians want to be, and they're not just looking to get out of. Christians like your own children. Yeah. And so that's one of the humongous blessings that I was born into. Is I was born with a father who was thinking that way. And my dad,
me too.
My dad built this business. He'd taken it over back in the 80s from a father and son team that had been doing it since the 1928.
Hey, you guys are coming up on 100 years.
We're coming up on 100 years. Yeah. So yeah, as far
which is in the supplement realm and even in the farm realm is almost unheard of.
It's so crazy. Yeah. I mean, you got Unilever and Procter and Gamble putting out new supplement brands like daily.
Buying the ones out
buying
that
them
are,
up, and then
the organic is growing. Let's just take over that. Yeah.
Right. So I grew up in this business. It looked different when I was a kid, of course, but I grew up going to work with my dad. I remember one year my dad, I was in the 6th grade, and he decided he was going to homeschool me. And homeschool for my dad meant like I just go to work with him and I just do whatever he did. So, and I remember
home is where dad is.
Home is where dad is, exactly. I remember we had this one computer math program, and he was like, if I did one lesson per day of the math program, that was homeschool. That was all we did for academics. And then I was just like there at work with him, just working on whatever he was working on.
You mean to tell me if a young boy doesn't just sit for 6 hours a day intaking information that he can't be a successful entrepreneur?
Yeah, right. I mean, I don't know that I would recommend that for like all 12 years, but for that 1 year, it was amazing.
Totally. Yeah.
So I'm passionate about this business in part because it's a family business. It's a business where families are working together. Our farm, where we produce the milk that goes into some of our products, that has 3 generations living on it. It's got my mom and dad. It's got my wife and I. It's got our kids. Our kids work the farm. Like I was telling you before we started recording, my son, who's with us in the studio today, every year he grows, he raises up the next generation of kids, of baby goats, kids on our farm. This last year he did 150 goats. That's a lot of animals, and I think he would love to do even more in the future. So I love any type of business where families can work together. And by God's grace, I was able to be born onto it, and I realized the tremendous covenantal privilege that was to be born into a family like this. But besides that, health is like a tremendous gift. So to be able to work in a field that promotes health, that promotes wellness, vitality, is something that is really, really fulfilling. And because of the nature of goat ingredients, we come across people all the time who show appreciation for the products we make, because it was kind of like we call them end of rope customers. They were at the end of the rope. We were kind of the last one they tried, because like everything else was wrecking their gut. And then they tried goat for the first time, and they're like, "Whoa, where has this been my whole life? You know, this stuff is amazing."
Yeah.
And so that's really, really fulfilling to know that you are a big part of people's health journey, and you're making a product. Like we start off we usually do a team meeting once every 2 weeks about.
Okay.
And usually when I open the meetings in prayer, I'm asking God that He would make us a better team so that we can serve our customers better. Because like none of this exists without our customers, and without satisfying our customers, without giving them a product that is high quality and that is going to actually change their life for the better. That doesn't happen. So that's what we're focused on. That really as a business or as a team here at Mount Capra and at Mount Athos, we're so passionate about that, because we want to change people's lives for the better. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so excited about the Mount Athos line. It's a brand where we can it's not a legacy brand. It's not been around since Mount Capra officially has been around since like 1985.
That's a pretty big legacy.
But before then, it was Briar Hills Dairy, which my dad ran for a long time, and that goes back to 1928. So Mount Athos is like, hey, we are an explicitly Christian brand. We're going to use this to encourage our customers to reject vice and embrace virtue. Live the ascent, as Giovanni is so fond of saying. Like those kinds of things are that just makes me excited. Just that I get to be a part of it.
Yeah, and not only obviously not only for your family and the families of your customers, but then you're helping raise up other families through your business, through employees.
Yes,
So it's
absolutely.
My family, we just finished going through Genesis. Finally, we've been working through it and through this family worship devotional, and seeing the patriarchs in the world for that time and for a long time after that, still today, all over the world. Yep. You mentioned to me earlier that goat's milk is consumed way more than cow's milk. And so what were they? They were shepherds, they were herders, and that was their wealth. They had families and servants. They had entire tribes and nations that came out of doing that enterprise. And so here today in the modern world, you're doing that. It's something that a lot of people aren't familiar with. I mentioned to you earlier that I lived with a family that had a couple milking goats. Yeah. But to come and see your operation today was so encouraging to me, because this can be done at scale. Yes. And we need more families pursuing that. So one of the questions I wanted to ask you, talking about multi-generational family legacy, I actually had a friend that I haven't talked to in a while that he challenged me because I talked about how we need to be cutting stones and building cathedrals. And he basically was like, oh, you can tell people who are not Christians because they are focused on building things in this world and things that are going to weather. And my first thought was like, some of these cathedrals have lasted, they're thousands of years. And Jesus talks about building something on the rock. But I realized I went from being frustrated to having compassion on this man because he doesn't have children yet and doesn't have the same framework and has a misunderstanding of Scripture, which is realizing that you said, yes, we need to live in the present. And what we're doing is if something, God forbids, happens to you or to me, we know that we've been sowing into our family to where they're taken care of.
Yeah.
And it's not the job of the state. You know, at the most, it's the job of our extended family and the church.
Absolutely.
But you're thinking long term, and that is really foreign to how most of us were raised in modern Christianity, which is this world doesn't matter, and Jesus said His kingdom isn't of this world. So unpack that a little bit and explain how that fits into the overall mission of not only a company that is a family company and are building a legacy, but in actually delivering a product to customers that's different from the secular model. Because these other companies that you mentioned earlier, the hegemonies, their business model is how much can I milk my customer? And there's all these side effects and negative things that I'm giving them, from microplastics to synthetic ingredients. Yeah. And I'm going to get as much money from them as I can in their short period of time. And the current CEOs and shareholders, you know, they're making a profit right then and now. They're not thinking multi-generationally. Whereas your business model and our business model is we want your children to also be our customers.
Yeah, and not only that, but we want to operate in such a way that we are able to have our children serve you as your customer. You know, so not only do we want your kids to be like, this is a legacy brand in your house because it's something that you grew up with, but like the people who are working here, their kids are working here too now. Yeah, because they know, like, hey, when you work here at Mount Capra, you really are treated like family. But to your original question there about building the cathedrals, and I'm not an expert on cathedral. I'm an enthusiast, and I would love to cathedral max more often. Yeah. Washington doesn't have a ton of them, and I was actually, this is a bit of an aside, but my wife and I were and the kids were just celebrating her birthday. And we were driving past. We were on one of the islands in the San. It wasn't San Juan Island, but it was south of the San Juan Islands, but it's here in the Pacific Northwest. And we were driving past just on these little country churches, these little country Presbyterian church, and it's beautiful. And it's just, and then they've got the pride flag out there. And I said the thing that makes this so infuriating is that they're inhabiting a building that they have zero worldview to actually build themselves. Yeah. So it's kind of like that idea of the left taking your religion and wearing it like a skin suit. Like that's all they can do. They can't build any of that stuff. So like the cathedral stuff matters because that comes from the soil of culture, and that soil of culture is being watered by, which is always further upstream, is worship. Everything is downstream from worship. And so at our classical Christian school, I'm the music director there, and I was reading to the kids today, prior to us working on our choir songs, I was reading them Psalm 90, where Moses is asking the Lord, we're here for 70 or 80 years, and then it's all gone, and we fly away. Yeah. And he's kind of almost got this downcast feeling like, why, it's almost like an Ecclesiastes moment. But then at the end of Psalm 90, he says, establish the work of our hands, Lord, establish the work of our hands. So we were talking about, like, what does it mean for the Lord to establish the work of your hands? Well, we know that he's enthroned in our praises. So when we worship the Lord, he's establishing our work, and that worship is work. It's something that we do by faith, but it's still something we have to do. And so part of establishing a Christian community and a Christian culture is by first getting your worship right and just worshiping God as the transcendent being that he is, because everything else flows from that. You can't vote your way out of the situation that we're in right now. It's got to be widespread repentance to the core of where we're at. Yeah. So as far as like building cathedrals or building businesses, in a sense, your friend is right. It's not the ultimate thing, because it is, 500 years from now, it's not likely that Mount Capra will be around. Maybe it will, but not likely. I don't delude myself in that. But it might be. Or the church building that you build today, it might not be here in 500 years. But the worship of the triune God, the transcendent worship every week of doing that in faith, day in and day out, week in and week out, year in and year out, that does establish. That establishes entire communities. That's why we live in the greatest nation ever, because that's what our forefathers did. Now, we've forgotten it. We've rejected it. We've hardened our hearts to it. But that's also, we know the way back.
Yeah.
We know the way back. So building cathedrals, if it's just from your own doing, that's not going to last. But if it's done in faith and you're planting those trees in whose shade you'll never sit, that will last. And that's the kind of work that the Lord establishes. But that kind of work, you can't do that if you're only thinking about your customers as economic units or your workers, your employees as economic units, where you're squeezing them for everything they've got, because you'll do nothing more than what the law allows you to do, and that's it. It's like, how would you treat your own son or daughter if they worked at this place? Well, that's how you should treat your employees.
Yeah, absolutely. We have another side business we have is a property management business with another long-term friend that him and I came together on nutrition, and our whole principle is we're treating your property and we're operating this as if it's ours.
Yep.
As if it's our own home, and we want to take care of it as if we want it to last for our children and their children.
Yep.
Looking at the culture today, when we think about health and nutrition, so getting kind of practical with the product and the service that you offer, why is regenerative health and then nutrition as the primary fuel for that so critical for Christians? I think a lot of Christians are just now coming into this understanding that we have to take control of our health. We have to have more food security, and the health of our bodies and our children's bodies is something we need to take ownership of. And without that, we don't have a future. So how do you think about that, and what are you doing to help solve those problems?
Christians are sometimes they're quick to recognize that bodily exercise profiteth little. As Paul says. And I'm sure you guys already talked about that verse, but it does profit. So it is a profit.
It doesn't say it doesn't profit.
It doesn't say it's a waste of time. It does profit. And so if your health goals are usurping your spiritual goals or the guardian of your soul, then that's a problem. But for the most part, Americans don't have that problem. We obsess about health a lot. We're constantly being scared about our health. We are constantly thinking that we're constantly being told chasing fads. That's all the time we're chasing fads because we're really an algorithm society. We respond to whatever the algorithm tells us to. But if you think about your health is a gift from God. And like any gift that he gives you, it ought to be stewarded wisely. And like anything, you can steward it poorly, or you could steward it wisely. A lot of you and I were talking about like some of the people in like the nutrition and the nursing world, and how they can be some of the most unhealthy people that you actually meet. And part of the thing that makes that funny is that it's like the mechanic that drives the beater and never takes care of it because he's so busy like taking care of other people. He doesn't think about his own. So Christians need to remember that that your health is a gift and it's not a guarantee. That you are not guaranteed good health. And so first and foremost, above anything else you do, you need to be thankful for your gift, for that gift. And if you're truly thankful, then it opens up a whole host of different things that you can do. And one of the things we need to get as a society, as Christians, just speaking about Christians, we just need to get more self-control around food. Like we need to reduce the way in which food controls our thinking. That's why when it comes to like fad diets, there's really fasting, and I know there's all kinds of different thoughts to think about fasting, but fasting really is the only like ancient health thing we've got.
It's true.
Because it gives both physical and spiritual benefits. And the biggest spiritual benefit it gives, fasting does at least, is that it just allows you to stop being controlled by food, stop being controlled by your passions. Because the godly man is the man who is filled with fruit of spirit, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Self-control, like, basically ties all of those other. If you don't have self-control, you're not going to have any of those other things. And so one of the key things that Christians need to do is just have self-control around food. And this is something that you need to hear. I need to hear. Devani needs to hear. We all need to hear this. Right. And then okay, so now nuts and bolts. Now what do you do? Okay, I'm having self-control around food. So you're not like constantly just following your passions for hyper palatable food that gives you that response in your that dopamine release where you go get fast food at 11 o'clock at night. And not saying that that's wrong, but just like that's the thing that you need to be yourself.
That in itself is not sin, but to you, if you know the right thing to do and you don't do it,
or if you have to do that to be thankful or to be happy, or
I won't be mastered by anything.
You can't be mastered by anything, right? So not everybody is going to agree with me on this. I don't think that there's unclean foods. I don't mean that just in. I think that there are foods that you can eat that are poisonous for your health. In that case, there are unclean foods, but there's nothing immoral about eating Taco Bell. It's just not good for you. And so it's like you have been given this gift of health. And if Taco Bell is the main thing you're giving your body, that, again, I wouldn't go so far as to say that's sinful, but I would say that, are you truly being thankful for that gift that you've been given? So, okay, nuts and bolts, protein. Protein is key. Most of us don't get enough protein. One of the things that's so good about the macro, so there's three main macronutrients. There's protein, carbohydrates, and fats. One of the reasons why protein is so important is because that's what your lean body is made from. But it also gives you the least amount of calories per gram that you eat.
Yeah.
So in terms of, it's really hard to get fat on protein.
Yeah.
You could do it. Like, never say never, but you could do it. Whereas it's unbelievably easy to get fat on carbohydrates. Look at a cow. A cow eats nothing but carbohydrates all the time.
Yeah.
And they get fat because that's what herbivores are. Think about every herbivore you know in the world. They all have the same shape. To a certain extent. It's not a perfect
but
rule.
They're big.
But they're usually really big. There's some herbivores. Obviously, you've got like goats, or you have deer and whatnot. They're a little bit more thin, but you think about elephants and rhinoceros and
that is interesting. The
hippopotamus
biggest animals in the world eat the smallest things.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. Or they eat salad basically all day, and yet here they are. They're humongous.
Right.
But you think then about like the sleek, the animals, the hunters, the predators.
And we're omnivores. We're not herbivores.
Yep. And so you have like the think about your mountain lion or your tiger, and these are carnivores. Like they're just eating meat. They're just eating protein, almost exclusively eating protein. So we're not carnivores. We're not herbivores. We're omnivores. We can take it all in. But there is a tendency towards, you can be the fat bear, which is also an omnivore, or you can be the sleek bear. That is, and of course, bear don't care. They're just trying to get as fat as they can because they're just an animal following their baser passions.
Yeah.
But for us, we know we don't have to survive in a hole in the ground for the winter.
Yeah. God didn't make us to hibernate.
Yeah, exactly. So we have to actually make different choices. And if you're a modern man living today, if you're listening to this, modern man or woman, you're in a very difficult spot. In one sense, it's never been easier, and it's never been harder. It's never been easier because you just have so many options. You go to the grocery store, the world is at your door, at your feet. It's
hyper convenient.
You just have everything you could possibly want that's healthy, that's good for you. You've got it all there. You don't have to work for it. You have to make money, but you don't have to like go out there and make it yourself. But also it's all there too. All the processed, basically processed corn and all its variations that are in the
and it's also hard because there's such a plethora of options. If you go into like a health food store, the amount of proteins you see there, like, good grief, which one do I pick? Which one do I choose? Right. So,
so good rule of thumb is animal-based. Animal-based products are almost always going to be better in the protein world than anything non-animal based. protein quality, digestibility, amino acid profile, those are all going to be way, way, way superior.
Yeah, we were just looking at your amino acid profile earlier, and it's got the 18 on there.
Yeah.
Out of the 22, and perhaps some of the other ones are there, the other 4. But the important factor is it's coming from one source, from goat's milk, and you're getting almost all the amino acids. And it's like milk and eggs. You have to eat so many different plant foods.
Oh yeah.
And the cultures that do, eat more plant-based, they have a huge variety where they are. But they have to combine so many different things in order to get all those amino acids.
Right.
And you find where people have to survive harsher environments where they have to be more physically capable, they need to eat animals.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. You got to it's the vegan diet is a diet that is entirely a modern creation.
Yeah,
it doesn't have any semblance in the real world.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing that makes it difficult to keep control over your passions when it comes to related to food is just the hyper palatability of food. Like it's so unbelievably more palatable now than it was 100 years ago.
Yeah,
because 100 years ago, you couldn't really even fathom something like a Big Mac. I mean, you could,
or a donut,
or a donut, or you definitely had fat and lard and sugar and all of those things. But if you wanted fried chicken, it was like an all day. You didn't just go get it through a window.
Right.
You had to work for it.
Yeah.
Or
even speaking of the cow, like some guys I've talked to, and they're doing really good on the animal base, but they're just blowing their fat out of the water. I'm like, well, someone would have had to decide, okay, what do I want? Do I want the cream? Do I want the butter? Do I want the ghee? Do I want the meat? Do I want to slaughter this animal, or do I want to get the milk from it? And in our day and age, we could just eat all of that at once. And so like tempering that, and understanding that.
Yeah, exactly. And you no longer are being held to the rhythm of the seasons anymore.
Yeah,
where it's like, okay, this is the time we eat so much of this because we just found a beehive and we're gonna pig out on honey for a while because we're not gonna see it again for another year.
Right. Yeah.
So it really, what we need is men and women who are self-controlled and who can recognize the immense power that food has over our lives.
Yeah.
Because I guarantee you, the Procter & Gamble's, the Unilevers, they know exactly how powerful, how addictive the food is that they make.
Yeah.
And they make it that way on purpose. Salt, sugar, and fat. You put those 3 things together in any type of extruded cornmeal, wheat, you can just put that in all kinds of different.
And then we're going to add MSG on top of that. Yeah.
Exactly.
And corn syrup. Yeah.
Right. And then you can, we'll also sell you insulin. And,
Right. Yeah.
So I'm not sure if I answered your first question about what Christians do there, but a huge thing, you don't need to have any nutrition knowledge to just like keep yourself, recognize like, how did your great grandma eat?
Yeah.
Eat like your great grandma did.
Yeah, organic is this thing we've had to invent for like how our great grandparents used to just eat normally,
exactly.
Before all the industrialization and all that.
Yep.
So you basically said a few things there that are really important to us. So biblical nutrition, self-control, having a plan, being being proactive and not just being reactive to whatever's out there, and then also getting clarity and making sure that the things that you are choosing to nourish your family with. One of my favorite things that a good friend of mine, a phrase that he coined was, men need to take ownership of the nutritional status of their families and of their communities. So I want to talk about regenerative agriculture.
Yes.
And I was looking at your label on Mount Capra, and I think you gave it a really good definition. You summed it all up. A lot of people are confused about what that means. In my realm of regenerative nutrition coaching, that looks like using concentrated nutrients and really high quality whole foods and all those things we just talked about. And then on the supplement front, making sure you're choosing things that are from whole human foods and that are pure and that are going to be actually adding to your health, and that that you trust the company, the family, and have some proof, some third party proof of that. And me coming today and getting to see your whole operation from the farm to the end product, that's third party verifiability.
Yeah, there you go.
And it's amazing to see how
Can
much
you give
work.
us a certificate or something?
Yeah. Yes, certified biblical nutrition.
Approved.
Yeah. Well, just that transparency.
Yeah.
That's not something that you get from this conglomerate that's sourcing from a million different things, and they don't want people to know, and it's all proprietary and all that. And not to say that there's not things that aren't. I didn't take little pictures of everything, but just getting to see, okay, this is the operation from the beginning to the end. These are the people that are involved, but seeing the original animal and then the food that animal eats. You took me in and you showed me where you guys sprout barley.
Yeah.
And why that's important, and so. all of that gives me so much more confidence and so much more buy-in. But I want to talk about regenerative health and agriculture. A lot of people don't know, what is regenerative farming and agriculture.
Yeah. The way I would define regenerative agriculture, and I'm curious as to what I said in the thing you read, and see if what I say now is going to be similar.
Yeah, sure.
But when I think about regenerative,
it's a big buzzword, right? There's a lot of hype behind regenerative, but what does it mean?
Sure.
Yeah.
What I think of regenerative is so there's like sustainable farming, and sustainable would be kind of like there's a net. It's a net zero. So you're not. So there's a book called The Worst Hard Time by a guy named Timothy Egan, and it's written on the Dust Bowl of the 1930s.
Okay.
And in the 1930s, there was a 10-year drought. And coupled with the 10-year drought was this type of incredibly destructive form of wheat farming that we did as a nation. And this was completely the fault of the government. They put a $2 a bushel wheat price on so you got $2 a bushel, which was insanely high. So everybody everybody rushed to the Great Plains, tore up the ground, planted wheat, left, came back in the spring, harvested, and were making bank. So all of that topsoil, all of that grass that's holding the ground together is now being torn apart.
Yeah.
And they're essentially
destroys the microbiome.
It's destroying everything.
Yeah.
And then you have a 10-year drought on top of it. You have these windstorms that would come through, and you would have a single afternoon trillions of tons of Midwestern topsoil blowing into the ocean. You'll never get that back again. So that would be the worst kind of farming, where you basically you farm until the soil is gone, and then you move to the next spot.
And not to get off too much of a tangent, but the Great Plains used to be roamed by ruminant animals.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And the Great Plains is in part the way it is because of those ruminant animals that grazed it.
Yeah.
So that's the worst kind of farming. That's like destructive, rape and pillage the earth kind of farming.
Yeah.
Most farmers don't do that anymore because farmland is insanely expensive.
Okay.
So you have to like keep your piece of farmland functional somehow. The problem is that now the way industrial agriculture works is you do that through chemical fertilizers, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. And you inject those into the soil. They give basically
coming from petroleum.
Yeah, all made from petroleum, exactly. All controlled by ADM or who knows? Whoever sells that and owns the market there. But so you can still grow things and use chemical fertilizers to make them grow. But that's like now the second worst way of farming.
Well, that's how we get all of these mega crops that don't have nutrients, all the critical micronutrients that have selenium, zinc, other minerals. In fact, they're sprayed with things like glyphosate, which is a chelating agent that removes the minerals from the soil.
Yeah, and not only that, but it's because you monocrop everything. Now everything is just susceptible to like one blight, and it's all gone.
And the same company that makes that GMO seed now sells the pesticide to deal with that.
Oh man, and man, we're going off rabbit trails now. But the GMO seed companies, they are literally framing, like blackmailing farmers.
Yeah.
If they find any of their material growing on your farm, even if it blew off of a truck, they will
because they own the genetic stock.
They own
which
the genetic stock.
who owns the stock of food? All humanity, because God's given it to us.
Right.
But they can patent it.
Yeah, only in America though, because like you can't do that in the EU.
Oh, they're trying to take over the land in Ukraine that's now been decimated through war. Same companies. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we've kind of seen how American agriculture has gone from just like rape and pillage the earth to
some of the best soil in the world, the most navigable riverways. Yeah.
Like you're talking about areas that have topsoil that are 4 feet thick.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that is a travesty.
This is important because covenantally and nationally, when we think about our faith, we have destroyed incredible resources and wealth that God gave to our ancestors.
Inheritance. It was a huge inheritance that we've really thrown away. So
now regenerative is helping recover that.
Yeah, sorry, I was getting to that. So then there's sustainable. Yeah. And sustainable is kind of like a net. So you put in and you take out, and you kind of have this sustainable system that can go on for generations. That's sustainable. Now regenerative actually seeks a net positive in the environment. So take, for example, organic material in your soil. There's various ways of testing to see how much organic material you have in your soil. regenerative approaches to farming would be that year after year, you have more organic matter in your soil, not less.
Okay.
That would be one aspect of how regenerative farming is used.
It's not enough to keep the status quo or to sustain. You want to actually recover and enhance productivity.
Correct. Farms, when they're well run, they should be a benefit to the earth. They should actually make the earth more of like the Garden of Eden, not less.
Yeah.
In order to do that, though, it's very hard to industrialize that.
Yeah.
Because we are used to cheap. We're used to food being super cheap.
Yeah. Well, like less than 2% of the population are actually farmers.
Yeah.
Growing the food, which is wild because in just a very short period of time in human history, we went from most people doing that to now a handful of people.
Correct.
And then somehow the rest of us are overfed and undernourished.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, and you're totally right there. So I would look at regenerative just as simple as does your farming practice add to the ecological benefit of the earth or not?
Sure.
And if it does, then that's regenerative. So like one of the things I'm certified in is in permaculture, permaculture design. I took a class from a guy by the name of Jeff Lawton, who is a permaculture wizard.
Is he the Back to Eden guy?
No, that is who is the Back to Eden? He's the guy up in North Washington.
The
right?
L2
I forget his
guy.
name.
Yeah.
No, this guy's different. He's Australian, actually.
Okay, cool.
Anyways, there's lots of different permaculture guys.
Yeah.
A lot of times they're not necessarily you don't necessarily find the most Christians within the permaculture. It's a little bit more of the kind of sometimes a little bit more of a hippie movement type thing. But one of the things that I learned a lot from
The
them.
clinical nutritionist I studied under was permaculture, big permaculture.
Okay, yeah. So permaculture is the real deal because you're essentially looking to take your landscape, whatever your farm is, you're looking to do several things. You're looking to slow the water down. So the water goes off of your property in the slowest possible way. Yeah. Because water is destructive or it's incredibly beneficial. Yeah. Oftentimes there's not a lot of in between. Yeah. So if you can slow it down, it leaves all of its goodness behind. If it rushes off of your property, it will destroy things and you will be left with a kind of a drought. Even in the midst of a very wet climate.
When Joel Salatin was in Moscow, I got to go see him with Doug Wilson, and that was one of the things he pointed out is that you have this great area with the Palouse, but because there's not healthy water sequestration, then you're losing so much value of this land.
Yeah. And so another aspect would be de-emphasizing annual crops. So like the Palouse is like the breadbasket basically of the U.S.
Yeah,
like
and it's still the healthiest topsoil in the United States.
Yeah, it is great. So they're doing a good job. But every time you plant a crop of annual wheat, it's taking nutrients from the soil.
You're taking more than you're putting back.
Generally. Yeah, I'm not a wheat farmer, so I'm not trying to speak to that. But generally, annuals are far more intensive on soils than perennials. And the best perennial we have is grass. And grass is nutritionally useless to us. We can't do a thing with it, which is why historically we've not grown it. But when you take the magical power of the ruminant and you put the ruminant on the grass, it unlocks all of the nutrition of that grass for us in a way that we can access. And this is just it's like the soil microbes unlock all the nutrients for the grass unlock all these nutrients for the goat unlocks all these nutrients for us. And so it's like God put all
Mount
these...
Capra unlocks all these nutrients.
That's right. Yeah,
it's true.
I should have gone the rest of the way.
It's true. Yeah.
Yeah. So those are the kinds of things. So a huge part of the regenerative agriculture we focus on is grass farming, and grass farming is as simple as letting not ripping up the grass, not planting cash crops instead, but letting the goats graze it, mob graze it usually, get them off of it, let it recover. Just think about the Great Plains.
You showed me that today with the other land that you got that had been overgrazed. You're letting it rest. Which is a biblical principle as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Think about the Great Plains. You have all of these bison, like millions of bison, and they're getting constantly pushed by predators all around. They're never grazing on one spot of the Great Plains for a long time because that ruminant will destroy the area too. Goats, cows, bison.
Have you ever seen that short documentary on how the wolves changed Yellowstone?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, it showed that there was a lot of problems with the environment, particularly near the river, because when the predators were gone, then all of the animals were just right around the riverbank, and they basically destroyed it. It spread out, and water wasn't going to where it needed to go. when they brought the wolves back in,
Yeah.
then those animals didn't congregate right around the banks, and plants grew back and roots grew back, and
Correct.
it's just transformed the whole park.
Yep, absolutely. So cows are the worst about destroying things like that.
Yeah.
But they're incredibly useful for the environment if you as the gardener can put them where you want them. And the way we do it, we don't use predators on the farm. We use electric fence.
Yeah.
And you put in cows are way easier. So if you want to do regenerative grass farming, do it with cows. Don't do it with goats. It's way easier to do with cows because cows like one strand of electric wire is pretty much good to keep them contained. You can put up like chicken wire for the goats. It can be electrified, and they'll still try to find. They'll try to get to the other side.
The Bible talks about goats the way it does for a reason, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. How are sheep in between those two?
You know, it's interesting in the Bible. Goats and sheep are mixed because sheep are so stupid that the goats actually keep them from doing destructive things.
Christians can be really stupid sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah. When Jesus calls a sheep, he's not. It's a compliment because he loves us like a shepherd loves a sheep. It's not for our does not make us feel good about ourselves.
Not a point of pride. Yeah.
But yeah, so the goats and sheep do really, really well grazing together for sure. But any ruminant will destroy the landscape if they're not moved so either by predators or
a shepherd.
or by shepherds. Yeah.
Gotcha. Wow. So when we think about regenerative, we're thinking from the land that we are producing more than we're consuming from.
Yeah.
And that we are bringing back to Eden, so to speak.
Yep.
And then when that comes to the end in the food that we're choosing and the supplements that we're choosing, how does regenerative play an aspect there? Because on the one hand, you talked about we need to be self-controlled and we need to avoid these things that are damaging our health. You know, okay, it's not, the question isn't how many of these negative things that I can do and is it sinful? The question should be, is this building me up?
Yeah.
Is this good for me? So I think a lot of people are really struggling and are confused when it comes to which supplements to choose and who to trust. And we can appeal to, hey, this is the way we're doing things. We're good Christian families, but help somebody understand how making the right decisions with their food is regenerative. And I would say also add to that, there's a lot of bountiful and pleasure in that. Meaning having a bunch of kids is not just, hey, I'm helping with the population crisis, right? And that's obviously not why we have a lot of kids, although that's a huge problem. But you experience so many blessings from that. So when we eat the foods the way that God designed them, they taste better and they do more for our health. So kind of bring regenerative to the table.
Yeah. So if you did a marketing class, or if you did like, okay, we're gonna market these products, and you think about like the benefits of the product, regenerative agriculture would have to come lower on the list because when a customer interacts with the product, they really, at the end of the day, they only care about how it affects them.
Sure.
Like they're happy for you if you're regenerative, but if it, at the end of the day, it's not helping them, then they're not that interested. So I'm not trying to be self-important. I recognize that people don't really care about this stuff unless it directly benefits them, and so
more and more younger people are, which is encouraging. But yes, totally.
Yeah, and so I'm not.
We don't all need to be farmers in the time.
Absolutely, and my point is not so much to be cynical as to offer, like, you are not what you eat, you are what your food eats.
Yes.
So how does your food eat? That's going to be how you. That's going to be what you digest yourself.
You are what you eat eats.
Yeah, you are what you eat eats. I can't remember where I heard somebody said that, not me. But that's that's a key reason why regenerative agriculture matters for the end consumer is because it's just simply better for you. So, for example, I'll just use grass-fed beef as an example. If you take grass-fed beef and you compare it to, say, corn-finished beef or something, you're going to get a much different profile in terms of marbling and how much fat is in the meat, and maybe even like the end product, how good it tastes. And well-raised grass-fed beef should taste just as good as corn-fed beef. But even if it didn't, the health that you get for yourself from something like grass-fed beef is like it's insanely better than the feedlot cattle. Yeah. They're both, so from a macronutrient standpoint, they're both the same. They're both mainly protein and fat. Yeah. But from the actual what that food is, kind of like we were talking on the farm today, the difference in potential of what the milk of a goat is doing on a baby goat, and the milk of a cow is doing on a calf, which is born and is, it's going to become 1,000 pounds one day. It's like there is just different potentials there. The nutrient content of grass-fed beef is just simply far superior than anything that can be made on a feedlot
or in a lab now.
Or in a lab, exactly. And so that is why it matters.
And the same thing, obviously, for milking, right? A cow or a goat that is grazing rather than eating corn and soy and some of the stuff they feed them, it's not even food. It's like literally trash.
Well, I was just reading, this was several years ago, but I read about there was an accident in somewhere in Minnesota, I think, and a tractor trailer had turned over on the highway and it was full of Skittles, and it was headed for a dairy. And it was going to take all of those Skittles, because what are Skittles but just like corn syrup?
Yeah.
And it was going to feed those to the dairy cows.
Right. Yeah.
And as far as the dairy nutritionist was concerned, hey, calories are calories, carbs are carbs. But you're telling me
you can have the same amount of calories in Skittles or in berries.
Yeah. Or in just grass. It's like you're telling me that Skittles, the milk that's made from a cow fed Skittles, and the milk that's made from a cow fed grass is not going to be hugely different in like potency. And
people don't think about the fact that a lot of those toxicants, those chemicals, they are in the fat. That's where they get stored, and in the organs as well. And so then when you're eating the animal with that other fat, you're going to get some of those byproducts. So that's where if you're eating an animal that eats garbage, then you're eating garbage.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to a certain extent, I mean, that's one of the reasons why. So like if you had someone who wanted to do like some type of regenerative agriculture themselves, they wanted to I want to homestead. And it's like today you could start homesteading, even maybe not if you live in an apartment, but almost in any situation you can go get chickens.
Yeah.
And chickens will take all of your food scraps and turn them into eggs. They're magic. They're amazing. They don't take up very much space. They're like this. So animals do serve this really tremendously important purpose of taking food that's nutritionally no longer valuable to us and turning it into food that is valuable for us. So it's not a defect that a cow can take something like Skittles and turn it into milk.
No,
it's just really, really
it's
crappy
just a defect
milk.
that Skittles exist.
It's a defect that people feed it to the cows and think that the end product is somehow comparable to just like feeding what a cow should be eating.
Yeah, it's not complicated. How did God design things? He had a reason for doing that.
Right.
So now, what about milk? So that was you're talking about meat right there. Milk. Why? So grass fed, obviously better. Grass fed whey is the rage right now, and it's good. What about goat's milk versus cow's milk?
Yeah.
You gave me some really good information on that earlier.
Yeah, one of the things about goat milk that a lot of our customers have found to be very beneficial is the fact that it's at a DNA level. So if you compare DNA of goat milk and human milk, there is a lot of overlap. It very much. It has a lot of similarities that cow milk and human milk just simply don't have. So when goat milk is used in, say, infant formula, oftentimes that is the ingredient that doesn't cause any digestive issues with the baby, because it's that close to mother's milk.
Something you opened my eyes to earlier, like, what's the size of a goat? Pretty similar to the size of a human compared to a cow. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So the potential energy there, or not potential energy, but what the use of goat milk is to take a 7 or 8 pound baby goat and turn it into a 150 pound animal. Same thing is essentially what human milk does. It takes a 6, 7, 8 pound baby and turns it into a 130, 150, 180 pound person. Cows is different. And that's not to say cow is bad. It's just like when you have problems with cow milk, these are some of the reasons why.
Okay.
It's more allergenic. It's the protein is much harder to digest. It's great for making cheese. Cheddar cheese from cow milk is way easier to make than from goat milk because the curd is so much harder. But like cow milk, when you drink cow milk, the transit time is 3 or 4 hours. When you drink goat milk, the digestive transit time is way shorter, like less than 30 minutes.
Wow.
So you're absorbing that much faster.
Yeah.
Most of our customers very rarely have the digestive issues that come along with cow milk. So the casein is different, the whey is different. Both of those things in cow milk are very allergenic for people.
Yeah.
And if not allergenic, then they just don't tolerate it well.
Totally.
It's just the kind of things
Which,
that aren't very
with milk
digestible.
they should, because milk contains both whey and casein.
Correct,
A lot
yeah.
of people are pursuing isolated nutrient groups. And that's not to say there's not a benefit, to just
Right,
having whey
sure,
or something like that.
right.
But because you're doing as close to the whole product as possible,
Yep.
you've got both of those in
Yep.
one, which gives
Yep.
you more amino acids, which gives your body the ability to make more enzymes,
Yep.
all of your different immune cells,
Yeah.
muscle, things beyond muscle, because you don't only need protein for muscle, you need protein for every cell in your body.
Absolutely.
All the complex organs that you
Yep.
have need more complex proteins.
Yep, you're absolutely right, 100%. So yeah, goat milk has so many benefits over cow milk. Less lactose. It does have lactose, but oftentimes people who say they're lactose intolerant will try it and it won't bother them, which generally leads me to think that probably they weren't lactose intolerant, but it was the protein that was bothering them.
Yeah. Okay.
The gassiness, the diarrhea.
Yeah, that's usually where I go with people. Like, okay, if you're having lactose intolerance problems, pasteurized milk, then it doesn't have the lactase to digest the lactose. But if that's, try raw milk. But then if you're still having issues, then it's probably the protein type of protein.
Yeah, exactly. We're working on launching a casein protein that actually has most of the lactose has actually been kind of fermented down.
Okay.
So it's a little bit more of a sour flavor because it's no longer lactose, it's lactic acid.
Yeah.
Because of that, generally that's been very gentle on people's guts.
And casein would be the dominant protein in meat.
Casein is, casein is an interesting protein. Both casein and whey, to my knowledge, you're an expert in this too. To my knowledge, casein does not exist in anything but milk. Because one of the things about milk is that and this is something that happens naturally with goat milk and not with cows, is that it's naturally naturally homogenized. So cow milk, if you've ever had cows, you milk the cow and then you immediately get the cream layer and the skim layer on the top, which is fine. Easy to make butter from and whatnot. But what a lot of companies do is then they homogenize the milk.
Yeah.
They shove it
which
through
is bad for your kidneys.
Oh, it's bad for a lot of So it basically shoves the milk through a tiny little orifice that breaks up all the fat globules so that it no longer separates.
Yeah.
So it stays perfectly homogeneous. Goat milk has that already done naturally.
Okay.
And the problem with homogenization is it releases an enzyme or a free radical called xanthine oxidase, which is a very dangerous free radical. So homogenized milk it's not the end of the world, but it's just another thing that is kind of in the tick box.
And God didn't design you're the smallest filter in your body, your kidneys, to deal with that.
Yeah.
Because the molecules are smaller than that.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So one of the other things that I was just thinking of, glutathione production and having good quality goat milk and protein for that. How does that increase glutathione production? Because you just mentioned bad antioxidants.
Sure.
And as part of metabolism of things that aren't natural.
Right.
So glutathione is really important for antioxidant function
Absolutely.
in your body.
Yeah. Yeah. So one of the ways that I'm not an expert on glutathione, but one of the things I do know is that or I believe is true, is that it's connected mostly with the whey. It's found mostly in the whey of the milk. And depending on how you extract the whey from the milk, we have a third party that uses a cold filtration process to get the whey out of the milk. And when you do it that way, the glutathione actually stays intact.
Yeah, it was pretty clear to me going through your whole process that the preservation of all those nutrients through is really important instead of just trying to get a product at the end where you're overheating it, you're damaging it.
Sure, right. Yeah. Another place though is colostrum. If you can get colostrum it naturally has glutathione in it and can help boost glutathione as well. So
So okay, let me ask you about colostrum because it's the rage right now. A lot of people don't know what it is or what it's good for, and where it comes from.
Sure.
And why you would want to take it. So tell me about it.
It's a superfood. At least I would call it a superfood. And essentially what happens when a mammal gives birth, a mammal produces for the first 6 hours to 1 week, so even up to a week after giving birth, she will produce something called colostrum, and it's also known as first milk. And the first 24 to 48 hours, it's like very, very present in the milk. And in that first milk, there's all sorts of bioactive immune component particles, glutathione, lactoferrin, IgGs, IgAs, these immunoglobulins. And those things are essentially the way God designed mammals was the baby is born, the kid is born, the calf is born, and they have zero immune system whatsoever.
Right. And they're inoculated with all these bacteria as they come through being born naturally.
Yep, absolutely. And so they immediately start drinking this colostrum, and it's the mother's immune system transferred to the baby.
Gotcha. That foundational transfer.
That foundational.
Yeah, there's some pretty crazy studies showing children who were born in the NICU or weren't breastfed right away, and their immune system, and then also the amount of allergies that they develop at a young age.
Oh yeah,
from not getting colostrum.
Yep. And you had asked about before we started recording about how often do we have deaths on the farm from the animals, and if we don't get a newborn kid, if we can't get colostrum into them, they'll die.
Wow.
It's basically as simple as that. So that's how powerful colostrum is, and so it doesn't surprise me that it's finally catching on. And I think we're going to be hearing a lot more about the unique power of colostrum in the future. I think there's a lot of hype. People oversell it too, of course, but, and I would love to see some studies looking at the differences between goat colostrum and cow colostrum, because some of the initial studies that we've done does show a pretty significant difference in, the immunoglobulin, patterns, but it's too
again kind of more human natural or more
exactly. So it's like it's a little too early for us to make any determinate conclusions yet, but there's definitely differences. There's definitely differences in species for what's in those two colostrums. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, one last question I want to ask you, and again talking about the importance of farming the right way, that is going towards God's design. When you're thinking about your operation, you're having more goats, you're taking care of those goats so that they are producing a good product.
Yes.
The Bible says a righteous man cares for the welfare of his animals.
Yes.
And God even said, about Nineveh, there's people there, but there's also animals. And so that's also something that is missing in, we talked about agriculture, but also in husbandry. Right. It's a huge problem. And, of course, abortion and in human lives, that's an atrocity in our country. But what we do with factory farmings and CAFOs, it's just really sad. So tell me about your experience as a farmer.
Yeah.
And having your family, raising them on this farm, that whole life cycle and how you see it come to play and the care that you have for the animals, and how do you think that relates to the end product for the consumer?
Yeah. Christians, and I find myself tending towards this as well. We tend to be suspicious of people who care about the animal welfare, or even if they care too much about environment. Like that's kind of it's a tragedy that we think that caring about the environment and caring about the lives of animals is like leftist propaganda.
Right. Yeah.
Because it's like we own that.
Or as if you can only care about animals or only care about humans, and they must be at the expense of each other.
Right. Yeah.
Instead of this intricate system that God has created to be interdependent. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the left hates hierarchies, and so it's a hierarchy. We definitely think animals are not as important as people. But,
yes.
But yeah, it's like when you think about environmental protection and animal welfare, those are Christian ideals. Those are Christian principles. And so anything that the left does, or anything that is codified into law outside of in the name of Christ, it's just the left kind of aping Christianity. So Christians need to be like environmentally, they need to be environmentally conscious. And that doesn't mean that you have to freak out over plastic straws.
Yeah.
It means that you pick up trash. Don't live in a pigsty yourself.
Yeah, I don't want it in my water and in my body.
Right, yeah, exactly. You should care whether or not there's fluoride in your drinking supply. And so as far as how you treat your animals, there needs to be the correct balance between not worshiping them as in becoming calling yourself a dog parent or something, a dog mom, but also recognizing that those animals are part of God's creation that He pronounced very good, and so He made man the master of all beasts.
Yeah,
because He knew that we would take care of them better than they could take care of themselves.
And He gave us that command.
And He told us to do it, and He put the fear of man into them so that we could do it. And so we should do it. And when you run a farm, you have to be built different than if you live in the city. So you sometimes have to put animals down.
Yeah.
But it should always be done with the spirit of mercy in mind. I hate to intervene when the goats are giving birth, but sometimes you have to intervene. And
Yeah.
sometimes if you don't intervene, the goat will die. Sometimes you do intervene and the goat dies. Sometimes you're out there at 11 o'clock at night and it's freezing cold and you'd rather be in bed, but the baby's coming now. And so this is where I'm supposed to be. We have a good team on our farm. So
Yeah, helps to have 10 kids. That can,
exactly.
Right? Yeah.
But oftentimes I'm not the one out there, but I sometimes am. And it's important to remember, like, these animals rely on you. And, if you didn't want to do it to begin with, then you need to find something else to do. But if you're going to do it, take care of those animals well.
Wow. Well, that's super encouraging. I'm really inspired to continue to pursue our dream of homesteading for our family, and then also for other people, and that we can get to that point. It's kind of funny. We found out earlier that you used to live exactly where I live now.
Exactly.
Yeah, and thinking about that multi-generational legacy and involving your children, kind of bringing this full circle. What I've heard from you today is thinking intentionally, long term, and also taking joy in the different spheres of dominion that God has given you. So that includes you as a husband and a father, first and foremost. Yeah. That also includes you as a farmer. Yeah. And providing food. That's your vocation. And you're providing food for your family and thousands of other families. And then for your church, being involved there, you're the worship chief musician. Chief musician. Yes, because your voice is an instrument.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sure.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, you're the chief musician at your church. It was cool to see today some of the different endeavors with your school and everything that you guys are pursuing. So I'm also super encouraged there, and the different overlap. And then in your vocation, in being a business owner and providing goods and services, that extends through all of those things. So those are not disconnected. Yeah. They're interconnected. Yep. And God has given you dominion and authority to bless many others with that.
Amen. And, one of the key things that you can take away from all of that, any of us should take away from all of this, is that these kinds of, the way we think, it's shaped by what we worship, because we become like what we worship. Yeah. All the time. We become like what we worship. And so if the worship of God is not at the forefront, then all of these downstream things are going to be deeply affected negatively for that. So like, one of the most important things any young father can do is make sure that he has a biblically faithful church that he is worshiping at, that he is taking his family, he's leading his family, not following his wife. He's taking his family, he's taking his kids to it. He knows the pastor, he knows the elders. He's leading the family so that they are a blessing to the church and not just a drain on the benefit or the benefits of the church. So it's just cannot be overstated that the faithful worship of God will affect everything else. It's not the only thing. So it's not like we just stay worshiping the Lord. We don't just stay on the mountain all day. Like Peter wanted to stay on the mountain all day. Jesus says, no.
He's appointed one day and one time
exactly.
for a reason. Yeah.
Jesus, like, there's all these people that need help.
And then smaller practices of that throughout the week or on a daily basis with your family.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. There's people that need you. People need your expertise. They need the dominion that you are going to exercise in the sphere that God has put you in. But don't try to do that without faithfully worshiping God.
Yeah, and with other men.
Yep.
Well, I'm really encouraged by this. Want to have you guys check out Mount Athos for performance and Mount Capra as well, the parent company, and get to know some of the things that they're offering. You've heard how the whole operation runs and how God-honoring it is, and ultimately how much it can benefit you and your family, and also how that gives you more energy and productivity in serving others and doing your vocation that God has called you to do, and raising the family that you have or the future family that you want to have. So let us know if you have any questions, what you found really encouraging about this. And Joe, thank you so much for giving us an inside look.
Thanks so much, man.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
Good chatting with you.
You too.